Was walking that got me back to health again. Walking is the best medicine. It's equal to antidepressants in their effectiveness. Life is bigger than just what's going on in my little house and in my little body. Life is the sky expands across the whole earth, and the sky is so vast and so big and it's almost limitless. So if you're carrying a lot of resentment, anger, and grudges, that's going to weigh you down. And so I think forgiveness and just letting things go is a big part of positive mental health. And then there's also a lot of shame and stigma connected with a mother who can't cope. Resilience is a long, steady, slow journey to recover from whatever struggles you're going through.
Grief is one of the few experiences that every human being will encounter. Yet, despite how universal it is, many of us feel completely unprepared when loss enters our lives. We don't always know how to process it, how to support others through it, and how to find our way back to joy without feeling guilty. In this conversation, we talk about the baby blues and all other many shapes of grief. Not only the loss of a loved one, but also the grief that accompanies major life transitions, changes in identity, illness, and the expectations we once held for our lives. My guest, Grace Tallman, has dedicated her life to changing that scene. She's a registered nurse, certified grief counselor, mental health advocate, and author whose work beautifully bridges clinical expertise with profound personal experience. After navigating her own journey through postpartum depression, she courageously shared her story in her memoir, The Birds Still Sing: My Journey of Resilience Through Postpartum Depression, helping break the silence surrounding maternal mental health. Her latest book, Stronger: Stories of Grief and Resilience, brings together the voices of 24 individuals who have experienced many different forms of loss, reminding us that while grief is deeply personal, none of us has to walk through it alone. This conversation is a gentle reminder that grief and joy are not opposites, they can coexist. And often it's through our deepest pain that we discover our greatest capacity for compassion, connection, and purpose. So let's dive in, shall we? Welcome to Good is What Makes You Feel Well, Mama Terra's podcast. Each week, we will explore topics that impact your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health through inspiring transformation stories. Here, you will find practical guidance and actionable strategies to apply in your daily life. I'm your host, Ana Rezende, author, health coach, and speaker. I'm here to help you protect your energy, strengthen your well-being, and thrive through life's transitions. Speaking of life transitions, I would love for you to go to Amazon and check my book, Living Your Best Life in College, which I wrote as a guide for young adults transitioning from high school to college. If you are a student, a parent, a teacher, or someone who cares about well-being, this book might be a game changer. Now, let's dive in and discover all the different ways you can feel well. Vista transcende, levita. Hello, Grace.
Hello, Anna. So good to see you again.
Yay! Welcome to Good is What Makes You Feel Well.
Yes, thank you.
For us to start our conversation, I would like to ask you what, in this moment of your life, makes you feel well?
Makes me feel well?
Yes.
Oh, that's an easy one to answer. I love walking. Yes, we had our first snowfall yesterday, so early in the year, but But I put on my winter boots, a warm jacket, and I walked, and the sky was a bright, bright blue against the white snow. It was just beautiful.
I love those days too. And we
Yeah.
had our first snow today.
Oh, aren't you way down south?
I am in Tennessee, East Tennessee.
Tennessee doesn't snow in Tennessee.
Not that much, yes. But we had a little bit of snow today.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yes. The walking calms me down. It also, it's weird. It's kind of two things. It calms me down, but it also energizes me.
Mm.
And I can just, I sometimes talk to myself when I'm walking. I plan my day and I sort of just discharge anything negative and allow the nature, the trees and the sky to renew me.
I love that. Yeah. I'm a walker too. I love to
Mhm.
walk, and especially in nature.
Mhm.
So you said your walks both energize you and calms you down now, and you have this awareness for this moment of your life. So tell me how this idea or this concept of feeling well has evolved throughout your life.
Well, it's kind of related to my first book, The Birds Still Sing, My Journey of Resilience Through Postpartum Depression. It was walking that got me back to health again. And I've always stuck with it ever since that time. I just know how very, very important my daily walks are, and to my mental health, to my physical health. And so I equate wellness with walking. I have a private practice in counseling, and I always say to my clients that walking is the best medicine. It's equal to antidepressants in their effectiveness.
I couldn't agree more. I
Mhm.
couldn't agree more. So you touched your book, The Birds Still Sing, and where you describe your whole journey
Mm.
from postpartum depression,
Mm.
right? They call it
Yeah.
the baby blues, don't
Mm.
they?
Mhm.
Yeah. So would you be willing to tell us a little bit more about this journey?
Mhm. Yeah. So most people assume that a young mother with a healthy young baby are ecstatic and very happy, but little do they realize that the hormone shift, being up at night, can just really, really result in feelings of despondency and depression. And for me, it was very, very severe. I actually had to be hospitalized and
Mm.
wasn't able to care for my baby. I was away from her for several months. And it was a very, very dark period of my life. I also had some, I guess, relationship issues in my marriage at the time, which didn't help. And I don't think my husband could or was able to understand what it's like to be a young mother with a child. And so he could have been more supportive, but I didn't realize what I was going through. And well, I did take medication for my depression because it was so severe. But then I also, while I was in the hospital, I exercised. Every day I would do physical exercise. I would walk, I would ride the stationary bike, I did push-ups and sit-ups. I really connect my recovery with all the physical activity and exercise I did, because I guess I was seeing that my mental health was very low. And I thought, well, at least I have some control over my physical health. So I just put all my energy into just doing whatever I could to make myself as strong physically as possible, hoping that it would also help with my mental state. And it did over a period. It wasn't like overnight, but I really attribute being active physically is in whatever way people can. Not everybody is able to walk long distances or do strenuous physical activity, but whatever you can do, I always recommend that as the number one cure, not a cure, but an assistance to helping you get through a dark period in your life.
Yeah, absolutely true. And so many people, so many doctors and psychiatrists and counselors and people in the wellness world, they talk a lot about how physical exercise can help everything,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not only blood circulation, cardiovascular health, but mental health
Yes.
immensely. And
Mm-hmm.
especially, like you said, in nature or
Mm-hmm.
outside,
Right, right.
because then we get the perks of the sunshine
Uh-huh.
and the fresh air. We
It
can
is,
also admire the beauty around us on the
and, you
trees,
know,
like you said, the flowers, the gardens.
hmm I was just looking at the sky today. It was just blue, so bright, bright blue. It was not a cloud. And that reminds me that, you know, life is bigger than just what's going on in my little house and in my little body. Life is the sky expands across the whole earth. And the sky is so vast and so big and it almost limitless. So it reminds me that life is much more than just me.
If you are enjoying this episode but don't yet understand the multidimensionality of health, I created a free ebook to help you. It's a simple yet insightful few page book you can read in less than 10 minutes. The ebook link is in the show notes. Now, back to the episode. Yeah, and I love this expanded perspective of life because sometimes people who are struggling with mental health, they got caught up in that
Mm-hmm.
monkey mind.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
don't see the way out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But like you said,
Mm-hmm.
life is so much bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And we do have so many blessings,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That we can be grateful for
Yes, yes.
and focus on instead of keeping our minds caught in the negative thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, wonderful. So you mentioned that in your stay in the hospital, you started exercising, and after an extended period of time, you started feeling better.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, you took medication because it was so severe. Is there anything else other than physical exercise that helped you out of the depression state?
Mm-hmm. Well, self care in general, people sometimes think it's selfish to look after yourself. And young mothers, just don't have much opportunity to do that. But if you don't take care of yourself, nobody else will, right? So, getting enough rest, having a nutritious diet, and physical exercise, and keeping the pathway clear with your relationships. If you're carrying a lot of resentment, anger, and grudges, that's going to weigh you down. And so I think forgiveness and just letting things go is a big part of positive mental health. It's the ability to have perspective and sort of see that most people have good intentions. And if they said something that upset you, well, maybe they didn't mean to say that, or just give them the benefit of the doubt. And, holding grudges is so toxic.
Yeah, we usually think that when we hold those grudges, we are damaging the other person.
Mm-hmm.
But the
Mm-hmm.
first person to be damaged is ourselves,
Absolutely. Yes.
right? Because
Mm-hmm.
that heaviness
Mm-hmm.
in our hearts, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, just weighs everything down.
It sure does. Yes.
Yeah. So you said you do counseling work now.
Yes.
That has been your profession all
Mhm.
along?
I'm a registered nurse and I have worked in many different specialties, but in the last 20 years or so, I've been focusing on mental health and
Mm.
I've done mental health and addiction crisis counseling. And I know through the experience I've gained, I've become an expert in all things mental health. I have learned how to assess people's mental state and addiction issues. My focus is grief counseling because after my nursing degree, I also took a 2-year program in grief and bereavement through the University of Western Ontario here in London, Canada. And so I focus on grief counseling. I see all kinds of people, but I especially like to focus on perinatal loss, things like miscarriage, stillbirth, abortion, or postpartum depression, or a difficult labor and delivery. I really have a heart for young mothers because that has to be the toughest, most vulnerable period in a woman's life because the life of that precious little baby is dependent on her well-being. So if I can help the mothers be resilient and take care of themselves, I really like to focus on these young women because I've been there and I understand exactly what it is they're going through. Although each person has their own individual journey, but in a general sense, I understand on a very deep level what young mothers go through.
Yeah. And it's so important to have that support.
Mhm.
I remember myself, now my kids are grown-ups.
Mhm.
I have a 22 and a 19-year-old.
Mhm. Mhm.
I was always away from home
Mhm.
and I barely had any help.
Mhm.
And it is hard.
Yes, it is. It's really tough. And I think if young mothers could only realize that they're not alone, that
Mm-hmm.
almost every woman goes through this to some degree, and some have more support than others. And yourself and myself, we didn't have much support, so we are so dependent on that outside help when we are struggling to nurse a baby and be up at night with them, and it's a tough time. It's
It,
also joyful, of course, but it's tougher than we could ever have imagined.
mhm. Yeah. And I don't think we do have enough education around taking care of the mom, right?
Mhm, mhm,
Because I remember during my prenatal phase,
mhm,
we attended some classes, my husband and
mhm,
I, on
mhm,
how to take care of the baby. And
mhm,
everything is
exactly.
focused on the baby. Of course,
Mhm,
that is
mhm,
important because,
mhm.
well, we play dolls when
Yeah.
we are kids, but real time is different. So it was valuable, everything that I went through, but nobody touches on the cares for the mom.
No, you take your baby or you go to the doctor for a postnatal checkup, and the baby's all dressed up in a cute little dress, and the mother maybe has taken care to look nice too, and the doctor looks at the mother, oh, she looks fine, and then the focus is all on the baby, and hardly any doctors think to ask, how are you doing? How are you managing? And turn away from your computer for a minute and look the mother in the eye and say, are you coping?
Yeah. This is so, so important for us to integrate on postpartum follow-ups, right? So,
Mhm.
do you do that as a nurse now? Do you have the chance to work in your office
Mhm.
in that capacity?
The capacity that I work in is I see people for counseling. I have a number of young mothers who have had a difficult time with their birth and suffered a lot of anxiety and depression afterwards. I also have a mother who is going through the IVF process. And I didn't mention that in the beginning, as that's also another one of the areas that I specialize in to help couples or mothers who are trying so desperately to have a baby, only to have the IVF procedure fail once and again and again. And they're just almost ready to give up. And, you know, it's a journey that needs an awful lot of support, building emotional strength to go through that. It's just one disappointment after another for some women.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is a very tough situation to live through.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So while you were talking about this and about the support we need, something that came to my mind was our Native American old traditions, the way they actually supported other women, like the women in the village or the women in the tribe, how they would take care and support the new mother. And then the story that followed of the 40 days of recovery and not doing much, but just resting and recovering and feeding the baby, right? So I remember when I was pregnant, my mind was, how foolish is that? Why we can't get out of bed after birth? Why we can't do anything? And I was the one that did everything. I took care of the baby, I took care of the house, I cooked, I cleaned. And now I see I did it all wrong because I was not honoring my body. Thank God I got better and stayed healthy, but I do see how things could have been really for the worse because I just powered through. I not even consider that period of time being really necessary.
Mm-hmm. That's such a
So,
beautiful tradition, the Native Americans. I love that. And it reminds me of my mother. I grew up in a small Mennonite community.
mm,
And women, yeah, they weren't allowed out of bed for 30 days. I think that could lead to blood clots, but they would hire or a young teenage girl from the neighborhood who would then come and sort of be a mother's helper with a house. They would cook and they would take care of the other children. And the mother would stay in bed. And I imagine have her, I don't know if she would get up for meals. Probably she did. But yes, that tradition is completely gone by the wayside. We are so individualistic in our culture, aren't we? It's just everyone out for themselves.
and I
Yeah.
think the working moms like I was,
Mhm.
so I spent 5 months with my first kid. The return to work was really painful for me. I had some struggles leaving my baby behind. But this modern world in society with us doing all the things, it is hard to keep our minds straight, focused on ourselves and our self-care, like you said. And it's so, so important.
Mhm. And then there's also a lot of shame and stigma connected with a mother who can't cope. You know, what's wrong with you? In fact, that was asked of me when I told someone I trusted. I said, I'm really struggling. I'm going through a hard. What's the matter with you? She said. Yeah, it's a shameful thing to be seen as not coping or to be struggling. And there's a lot of stigma. So women keep it to themselves. It's not safe to talk about. And even doctors aren't open to hearing that sometimes. So
Yeah. So, do you see any preventative ways of prepping those moms before the birth
mm.
so they can have a healthier postpartum?
Hmm. This might sound a little weird, but I think the husbands have to be trained.
Oh, yeah, they too. I
Yeah.
totally agree.
Look at your wife. Just to keep that baby fed and clean and dry is her only job. You've got to step in and treat her as she's so vulnerable right now. She needs that time with the baby, and that's a full-time job. So husbands need to be trained to pick up everything else that the mother you used to do and step in there. And if there's family members that can help, yes, that would be great. But for the mother to expect that even though there's a lot of joy in the birth of a baby, it's also there's an awful lot of stress.
Yeah. And the stress in the body, not
Mhm.
only the stress of taking care of the baby,
Yes,
the
the
body
hormone.
needs to rest, right?
Mhm. Yeah, I think nowadays we just expect mothers to jump up and take over exactly what they did before.
Yeah, it is crazy because of labor. I went through it twice, and labor is a huge, huge
Mm-hmm.
stress in the body. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's the most painful thing
Mm-hmm.
a woman goes through, right?
Yes, and exhausting. I mean,
Yeah.
depending on the labor, but my last baby, well, I had 3 hours of pushing with all my might. It was just exhausting. When I was done, I just wanted to sleep for a year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, this is something we need to bring more awareness to
Mhm.
and prep those moms better and the
Mhm.
actually the couples, right?
Mhm.
Like you
Mhm.
said, it's so important to have the husband's support.
Mhm.
It is so difficult to go through everything alone. Yeah. So you mentioned you had a second child then?
I have three children.
Okay.
I had a 14-year-old daughter and an 11-year-old son when suddenly, oops, I was pregnant. I didn't want to go through that pregnancy. And my doctor did offer me a way out, but I said, no, I can't do that. It was not a mistake, it was a surprise.
Mm-hmm.
I never ever call it a mistake because she's my wonderful baby daughter, even though she's grown up now, but she'll always be my little baby girl. No, I would never give her up for anything, but it wasn't planned at all.
Mm-hmm. But it was not the third pregnancy that you got depressed. It was the
It
first one,
was
right?
well, I had experienced it after my first birth, and that is why I was so very, very nervous about my third pregnancy because the biggest factor for having postpartum depression is if you've had it before.
Mm.
And even though I was flagged as high risk, nobody ever asked me how I was doing.
Mm. Yeah. But did you have it again when your third
Oh, that
child?
was when I went through the period in the hospital.
Okay. Was in
Yeah,
your
it
third.
was after the third pregnancy, and I think that one of the risk factors too is your age. I was 42, which is a little old to be having a baby, and it was an unexpected pregnancy. Those are both also risk factors, and so and lack of support. My
Mhm.
husband couldn't see that I was struggling and that I needed more help from him. He was also struggling with a new job and having to commute. And so he had his plate full too. So he couldn't see what I was going through. And yeah, there was a lot of factors that played into why I got so very depressed.
And then you had two older kids. Then who helped you with the baby? The 4 months you stayed in the hospital.
Yeah, unfortunately, my mother had died just a few years ago, so she wasn't able to see her last grandchild. I really didn't have any help. Well, my 14-year-old daughter did take her on walks to the mall, and it would help with her bath sometimes. But on a day-to-day basis, I was pretty much alone.
So you did take care of the baby even
Well,
while depressed.
yes, it's weird. Immediately after her birth, I think it was just the exhaustion. I was completely worn out, completely exhausted, and I just wanted to die. I immediately felt the depression. And no, and like I said, nobody checked in on me to see how I was doing, even while she was born in the hospital. And I went home, and I guess things got a little bit better. But then when I went back to work at 6 months, I wasn't ready to go back to work, and the world just caved in on me, and I just couldn't cope. And such a dark period. Even now, when I look back, it's sad.
It is. It is sad. Well, I'm so glad you find your way through it
Yes, I'm too.
and you're feeling better. And now you know that physical exercise and walks make
Mhm.
you feel well. So tell me how you now prioritize your self-care and how you make sure you are well every day.
Mm. I continue with my walking, and I eat. I really pay attention to the food I eat and to drink a lot of water. I try and make sure I get enough sleep. And I socialize with my friends. I go out maybe once every week or once every second week. I have some wonderful friends, and we go out for little get-togethers. This might sound a little weird too, but I get a lot of satisfaction and fulfillment with my private practice in counseling. It's very, very life-giving for me to see that these clients, they are a source of real joy and delight to me, knowing that I can help people through their struggles. It's very fulfilling and satisfying to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So having a work that really gives us back is
Mm-hmm.
what I think everybody wants, right?
Yes.
This
Yes.
feeling of being at service for somebody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you really found your purpose there, right?
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
Yeah, that is wonderful.
And connection is another very, very important thing. You have to stay connected to hopefully your family. I know there's some very dysfunctional families, but maybe there's something you can do to break through those barriers. Stay connected to the people you love, stay connected to yourself, stay connected to your higher power, because we're not meant to be isolated human beings. We're meant to connect with people who matter to us, and we can do our part by communicating and making appointments with your friends to go for coffee or whatever, and to keep the communication lines between yourself and your partner open and clear, and to make that a priority, because I think that was a really big part of why I just crumbled. Because things were not going well between me and my husband, and I just added to what I was going through.
Yeah, absolutely. We are social beings. right?
Mm-hmm.
We are meant to live in community.
Mm-hmm.
And it is important to have a community for everything, for sharing the joys and for sharing the struggles.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. A group of friends and family members and whatever support we can seek out in our lives, we should, because those connections are the greatest gift that we can possibly have.
Yes. And also, another part that I really stress to all my clients is that nobody will do it for you. You know, we each have to take responsibility for our own well being. Of course, we can ask for support for sure, but that's part of taking the initiative. But we have to take responsibility for our well being. And if there's something not right, then find the support you need. Do what you need to do to get yourself back in balance.
Yeah. And one thing that you said that I think is really important for us to emphasize is if the communication is not clear, we have the power to make it better, right? So
Exactly.
we need to express our expectations. And
Mm-hmm.
that is actually how the relationships should be built, because nobody knows what's going on in our minds.
No,
So we have to say it,
I couldn't
right?
agree more.
We have to
Mhm.
ask for help and we have to communicate our needs, our
Yes.
desires,
Mhm.
because nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody's
No.
gonna know. And sometimes we do feel that,
Mhm.
well, I have been married for so long, he should know. But
Yeah.
no, that's not
No,
true.
no, it isn't.
It isn't true. We
Mhm.
always have to advocate for ourselves, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, wonderful. So now tell me about your book, how the idea came to you and what was the process of writing?
Mhm. Well, I'll start with the title. I was watching a documentary about World War II, and the guns were blasting and the bombs were falling. In the background, in the trees, you could see the birds still flitting around and singing their songs. So, my title is The Birds Still Sing, and the birds will never stop singing no matter what they're surrounded with. And that's sort of my philosophy about the book is I really, really push the idea of resilience, that we can survive anything if we just, like the things we've been talking about, if we do those things, if we get the help, if we, you know, put ourselves forward and take responsibility to do what we can. So that's the title, The Birds Still Sing. And the second part of the title is My Journey of Resilience Through Postpartum Depression. I think the reason I wrote this book was because I recognize there's a lot of stigma around any mental health issues, including depression, anxiety. And I was a mental health counselor. So I thought, I've got this story inside of me that I've really never expressed to anyone. Well, certain people, my family knew, of course, and my husband, but I thought by writing this story, I was going to break this stigma of women experiencing postpartum depression, to help them come forward and to seek the help they need and not struggle alone. So, the first part of the book just talks about my own experience with this illness and how there was a point where I was so low that it almost resulted in the loss of my life and my baby's life. Then from there, I go on to tell the story of how I was able to crawl out of my dark hole. Second half of the book talks about strategies that I use, and of course, exercise is one of them, self care. I talk about what is resilience. And resilience doesn't mean like poof and it's all better. Resilience is a long, steady, slow journey to recover from whatever struggles you're going through. And it is possible. It doesn't always come quickly, but it will come. And I just want to encourage and empower any women, and it's not just about postpartum depression. You can apply this to any situation in life that is getting you down, that is causing you to struggle. This book will help any person who is facing a difficulty in their life. I would just love for people to find their way through that darkness. And this book shows how I did it, and you can do it too.
So it is so lovely. And I love the cover, the idea of us humans as birds also flying away and also still singing, right? Because it is possible. It is possible, like you said. And resilience is so ingrained in nature, in our nature, because as part of nature, all the living organisms, us human beings included, are resilient. The body is so resilient, right?
We have the instinct in us to want to survive, no matter what. And we just have to tap into that.
Absolutely. And that is what our bodies want. They always want us to survive. That's their job. And that is where resilience comes from. So we just need to let it do his part and do our part, partnering with the body and being in tune with the body, and let resilience happens. Yeah.
Get out of our own way.
Yeah, that is true. Some people like to say that, and that is absolutely true. Get out of the way. Yeah. Don't be so caught up in your thoughts, because that is the job of the mind. The job of the mind is to think. We cannot stop the mind to think, but we can reframe the thoughts and focus on the positive.
And we have to remember that our thoughts aren't necessarily the truth. They can be total lies.
Absolutely. And more often than not, they are. They are little traps. They are little lies. And we don't need to pay attention to them. We don't need to trust them. We just need to witness them. Right?
It's like we're driving the car and these thoughts can stay in the back seat.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. We do have the control. Yeah. Yeah. Lovely. So, Grace, I don't know if you do have anything else that you would like to mention that I did not ask.
I just want to mention that I've also written a second book, which just came out in August of this year.
Okay.
And it's a book about grief, and it's called Stronger Stories of Grief and Resilience. And basically my theory and for the book is that grief is much more than the loss of a loved one. On a daily basis, we experience losses, and these losses also cause grief. And so often we're just expected to, just keep a stiff upper lip, keep your chin up and carry on. And these griefs are often silent and they're not visible to other people, or people just say, oh, so what? If you had a miscarriage, just go and have another baby, or if your pet dies, go get another dog. And people aren't given the opportunity to grieve their daily, everyday losses. The purpose of this book is to open the eyes of people to see that maybe your colleague or maybe somebody in your family or a neighbor or a friend is going through a loss that to them is very, very significant, which may go unrecognized because of society's attitude towards the only reasonable grief is if somebody dies. So,
But there are
and
so many
mhm,
losses that we should grieve
yeah,
too,
I
right?
interviewed 24 individuals for the book
Wow.
who had experienced different kinds of losses. And I just show that loss is all around us on an everyday basis. And people go through these and they, like chronic pain, chronic illness, mental illness, loss of a pet. And it's also an educational tool about grief. It talks about the different types of grief, the different theories about grief. So it's an inspirational book as well as it's a toolkit for anybody who wants to learn more about grief.
Oh, that is so excellent. That is a very important topic too. And another thing that our modern society just cut short. So we
Mm-hmm.
usually don't have time to grieve. We are not
No.
allowed time to
Yes.
grieve. We have to go back to work.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, again, if we go back to our ancestors, our Native Americans and our original people, they always grieved in community,
Mm-hmm.
one supporting each other,
Mm-hmm.
one feeding each other in
Mm-hmm.
their little ceremonies. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's important. It's just part of who we are. We have to
Mm-hmm.
give, again, the body time to grieve and
Mm-hmm.
recover from the stress of losing
Yeah.
whatever we lost.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, it's the loss of health through
Mm-hmm.
an illness. It's
Mm-hmm.
the loss of a pet. So many things that
Mm-hmm.
we can grieve. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's wonderful. And tell me how the process of writing was for you in
Mm-hmm.
both books.
Well, my first book, I actually wrote it at work. I was in a job where I worked from 5 p.m. to 2 a.m. And between midnight and 2 a.m., there was nothing happening. And my boss just said, whatever you do, you can do something productive or creative. I don't care how you use that time. So from midnight to 2 a.m., I would go to my typewriter or my computer and I would just write. And honestly, that book sort of just flowed out of me. It wasn't a difficult book to write. The second book, as I did the interviews, it was a very, very enriching experience. The people whom I interviewed said that it was so therapeutic for them to just be able to tell their story from beginning to end. And my only purpose was to listen and write their story. And they all felt very empowered through that. I must say that the writing of a book is almost easier than the publication process. That was more difficult. I found it took so much longer than I had anticipated, and but the
Yeah,
writing I enjoyed.
yeah. Excellent. Would you like to tell people how can they buy your books and how
Yes,
can they find you if they want to work with you eventually as a
yeah,
counselor?
absolutely. Go to my website, which is astrongeryou.ca. I am in Canada, so that's where the CA comes from. And you can order my books through my website. It's just gracetallman.com, and that has access to my books right through. You can order them right through the website, or you can go to Amazon and also Barnes and Noble. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, perfect. I will have that all in the show notes, the links to your website,
Uh-huh.
to your books. Do you want to leave us with a final message?
Mm-hmm. Yes, just a message of hope and light, no matter what it is you are going through right now. Don't give up. Keep going and you will get through it. If you need to talk to somebody, which is often very, very useful and helpful, I'm here. I'm here to listen and support and encourage without judgment or criticism. I'm here if you want to reach out.
Oh, thank you so much, Grace. Thank you for sharing so vulnerably your story and your struggles. Thank you for accepting the invitation. It was lovely to talk.
My pleasure, Anna.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and want to know more about me and my work, the easiest way is to sign up for my newsletter. Every week, I craft good wellness information, recipes, and book recommendations with love and care just for you. It is rich and free. Find the sign up link in the show notes. See you in the next episode. Until then, remember, good is what makes you feel well.
Transcende, levita.